All right, hi again. So today I'm just gonna continue that what we were doing last time, and we were working on how to solve the quadratic equation using the square root method. I know I've done a few examples, and now I'd like to do example number 3. All right, we're gonna work on that together. And if you want to just write down the question and try it on by yourself, that's a great idea, I think. Negative 2x squared plus 15 equal x squared minus 12. So again, I'm looking for, let's see, find the x-intercept. All right. So to find the x-intercept, the first thing I'm going to do, well, it's already set a function that is set equal to 0. So to find the x-intercept, I know that I need to put all the variables. We're going to take all the variables on one side, and we're going to set them equal to the constants on the other side. So my goal now is to arrange the equation that I have, where I have it in the form of variables on one side, constants on the other side. I always like to write down my equation again. So, does it matter which one you're gonna move first to the other side? It really doesn't matter. So look, here I have a constant, and that is need to be moved to that side. In order for me to get rid of the 15 on this side and move it to the other side, I have to do the opposite of it. This is plus 15. I will do minus 15 on both sides. And I like to match them up so that I can make my, my work easier. So I'm going to have 15 and negative 15 crossed out. Negative 2x squared. That's 0, so I don't care about it. Equal x squared minus 27, or negative 27. Now, am I done? Do I have all the variables on one side and all the constants on one side? I am not done. I still need to take the x squared to the other side. So in order for me to do that, I will have to do the opposite. Remember, when there's nothing before the number or constant or variable, that means this is a positive value. So I'm going to do the opposite of it, which is subtract it from both sides so that I can move all the variables to the side and keep the constants on the other side. So I will get negative 3x squared equal, this is going to be crossed out, minus 27. So again, I noticed that I have a number, a constant that is paired with that x squared. So what I need to do because I'm looking for x squared, I'm not looking for 3x squared. So what do I need to do? I need to get rid with what is paired. So we're going to get rid of the number paired with the variable. And we do that by doing the exact opposite. So I have a negative 3, and remember, negative 3 is, the value is negative 3. It's not, we're not subtracting them, it is a negative value. So negative 3 and x squared are multiplied. So in order for me to get rid of that negative 3, I need to divide both sides with negative 3. And why do we do it? Why do we do the same thing for both sides? Because that's how we keep our equation balanced. So I'm going to do this crossed out with that. So I got x squared equal negative, and negative is positive. 27 over 3 is 9. All right, so again, how do I get rid of that exponent? To get rid of that exponent, you will have to square root both sides. Here, let me write it down. Square root both sides to get rid of the exponents. And by the way, if you have cube in here, or to the third power, you can do the cubic root on both sides. If you have to the fourth root here, you can do the fourth root on both sides. You know, and we're gonna get to this into, you know, we got time to do this, but in future lessons. Now let's go ahead and square root both sides. You know what, let me write it down again. It's probably easier. X squared equal 9. So I'm going to square root both of them. The square crossed out with this, and I will have x left. And again, this is a perfect square. And then this is crossed out with that. When I have a constant and I get rid of the square that way, I'm going to have two values. One of them is positive, one of them is negative. So it will be 3, 0, negative 3, 0. Yep, and that is the solution, or this is the x-intercept of the quadratic function that we have. So I'd like to do example 4. So I'm trying to kind of cover all kind of different examples. But remember, they're all the same concept. You just have to remember things that you probably have learned before, you know, and put them all in one, you know, math problem. All right, so let's do example 4. Example 4, we got 7 into negative x squared plus 1 plus 6 x squared minus 1 is negative 17. All right, so what are we going to do? First of all, we're going to see if we have any common factor. Well, there is a common factor, and it would be really easy to do it that way. But I don't want to mess you up with so many steps. I'd rather just do it the way that, you know, a student might think of applying. So here, let's start this. I'm gonna do it with the other method too, but I'm gonna start with the method that I would think 90% of the students would that's what they would think of. First thing they would say, oh, I'm gonna distribute this 7 into inside the parentheses. And sometimes I have some students, they would distribute 7 to the other parentheses too. This is absolutely wrong. The reason why is because I have that mathematical operation in between them right here. Now you're going to tell me, but we have minus and plus in here. We have subtraction and addition. Yeah, you're right. But this, all this is considered one term. So this is one value, one term. And this is a separate term. They are not the same terms. They are separated by this. Why are these one terms? Because they are multiplied. So here, let's go ahead and distribute them. So we got negative 7x squared plus 7 equal, I'm sorry, not equal, plus, I'm going to distribute that 1 to what's inside the parentheses. So it will be 6x squared minus 6 equals minus 17. Now, we're going to move all the variables on one side and all the constants on the other side. But before we do that, let's combine like terms. It's going to be easier if you do it that way. So like terms are negative 7 squared and 6x squared. So that would be negative x squared. And then we have 7 in here and negative 6 on this side. So it would be plus 1 equal negative 17. All right, now looking at this, it looks easy. We're going to think of, oh, I need to put all the constants on one side and all the variables on the other side. And I'm going to do that by doing the opposite of that constant over here. So I have plus, I'm going to do minus. So it will be negative x squared equal negative 18. All right, so which means I'm going to go ahead, I need x square and not negative x. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide by a negative 1 to get rid of that negative. So I will have x squared equal 18. Now the question would be, how do I get rid of the square? So I get rid of the square by square rooting both sides to get rid of the square. You know what, I'd rather write this here too. Divide by negative 1 to get rid of the negative paired with x squared. All right, so squaring, if I want to square root both sides, I'm going to say square root here and square root there. This is crossed out with that. So I got x squared equal, well, this is not a perfect square, but in the previous lesson, we learned how to find the square root of numbers. And we said since this is to square, we're talking about square root, that means the index is 2. We're going to do the GCF of this, and we will group them in groups of 2. So 18, the smallest number I can divide it with is 2. That will be 9, 3, 3, and 3, 1. So 18 is the same as square root of 3 squared times 2, because I got here 2 times 3, which is 2 times 3 squared. All right, now again, we did this in the previous lesson, but I'm going to go over it really quick. Which one is going to go outside the radical? Oh, I'm sorry, here I should get rid of that square. Which one should go outside the radical and why? You know what, let me write it down here. X equal square root of 3 squared times 2. So the one that is supposed to go outside the radical is that square, because as we said, the square and the square root are going to be crossed out. And of course, when I find the square root of a number, I'm going to always have the same answer, but one of them in positive and the other one in a negative value. So that would be x is equal to 3, and that square root is going to stay inside the radical, or x is going to be equal to negative 3 square root of 2. So the solution of the function is going to be 3 square root of 2, 0, and negative 3 square root of 2, 0. It feels like it's a long problem, but it is really not. It's just I broke it down into so many steps. I'm kind of, every time I do a new example, I like to review all the important steps that you will need, not only in this one, but in almost every single math problem. All right, let's go ahead and do example of 5. Example 5. The example is that one is kind of a little different. Minus 10 all squared minus 6 equal negative 258. Again, remember, all this is considered one term. So I'm going to look at this and I'm going to like, oh man, that's so very complicated. But if I think of the steps, what do I need to do to simplify this? If I'm going to expand this one, it's going to be a lot of work. But I know that I need to put all the constants on one side. So we're going to do all the variables on one side and all the constants on the other side. So if I'm looking at this question, minus 10 all squared minus 6 equals negative 258. I am basically looking at this one. Why? What about negative 7? Should I add negative 7 on both sides? The answer is no. Why is it no? It's because all this is considered one term. So this is part of this whole term. They cannot be separated. And they are not even separated. If they are to be separated, then the plus sign would have been in between the number and the parentheses. All right? So what we're going to do now, we're going to add 6 because, see, these two are separated with this minus sign, the mathematical operation. All right? So, well, this is nothing. Don't worry about it. So we're going to add 6. Oops. I just like to use a different color when I do a new step. So I'm going to add 6 on both sides. This one is going to be dropped down the way it is. Negative 6 plus 6 are crossed out. All right. And this is equal to negative 252. All right. Now, what do you see here? Should I expand all this? Okay, let me say this. Let's say I just have negative 7x squared. What would you do? You would have probably just divided by negative 7 on both sides. Well, all this has that second power, and it's multiplied, which means I can divide both sides by negative 7 to get rid of what is multiplied with this one. So I will get negative 7 crossed out. So I have x squared minus 10 all squared equal negative over negative is positive. 252 over 7 is 36. All right. So now what do I do next? What is the thing you get a thing off? Again, always keep in mind, to make your life easier, that all this is one term. Now some of you would say, can I expand this? You sure can. But this would, you will get x to the 4th power, and it's going to be so complicated. So how do I get rid of that square? I'm going to go ahead and square root, here, let me write it down again. I'm going to square root both sides, square root this, and square root the other side. That square is going to be crossed out with the radical. So I will have x squared minus 10 is equal. 36 is the same as 6 squared, which is a perfect square. So square root of 6 squared, right? So x squared minus 10 equal the square root and the square are going to be crossed out. Remember, we said it's gonna have two values. One of them is going to be positive. That's first solution is going to be positive. And the second solution, x squared minus 10, is going to be negative. So I'd rather do it that way. It's totally up to you how you like to sort your work. But I like to do x squared minus 10 is 6 on this side. X squared minus 10 equal negative 6 on the other side. So here I got two-step equation. I'm gonna add 10, add 10. So I will get x squared equals 16. We're back to the same concept. If x squared is 16, square root both sides, square are crossed out. But I know that x is equivalent to square root of 4 squared, right? This and the 2 are going to be crossed out. So x is equivalent to 4, and x is equivalent to negative 4. And the same thing, in some books you will see it x equal plus or minus 4. And it's the same. But I like you guys to just recognize that whether you write it separate or together, they have the same meaning. All right, let's do the other side. I'm gonna put all the variables on one side and the constants on the other side. So we'll get x squared equal 4. I'm gonna square root both sides. Square and radical are going to cross out. Again, that 4, that 4 is a perfect square, which is square root of 2. That crosses out with that, and we will get two values, x equal plus or minus 2. Yeah, this one is a little longer than the other ones. It's different, and I'd like to go over, all different types of solving using square roots. So hopefully that will help. Yep, and that would be it for today. I hope you guys had a good time during this lesson.